Welcome back to the discussion, Putting the Cloud to Work in Government, sponsored by Leidos on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com. My guest today is Keith Johnson, Chief Technology Officer and Chief Engineer, Defense and Intelligence Group at Leidos. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy. Well, we got to talk about Bruce Springsteen here, believe it or not.
Right.
You know, he once wrote that there are 500 channels and nothing to watch, you know. I think people who work for the federal government are getting inundated with data, and they may have 500 petabytes of data and nothing to analyze. I mean, how do you analyze that much information? People are becoming desensitized to the information they're getting. There's so much there. So what criteria should people in the area here, Washington, D.C. area, use to select the correct tool for data analysis?
Well, I think it starts before thinking about tools. It starts with two questions that I like to ask. One is, what are the questions that you want answered from your data? And the second one is, where is your data? So, for instance, in the questions, there could be questions around how efficient is my workforce? Where are my customer desires? Where are my constituents? Where are the bad guys, right? So all these are questions that we need to be answering, and some of the data to help answer that is potentially buried in areas where we can't actually get at it, right? So the questions help determine what the data I need. Then is, where is my data? There's across all organizations, not just federal government, there is a problem of data silos because different organizations own different elements of the data. And so in order to address the tool question, we really got to start by asking ourselves, who owns the data and where is it located? So often when I go to organizations that want to answer questions, start with the data analytics, they start with the tools and the infrastructure. And they spend a year just building out an infrastructure because, for instance, if I have data from a human resources department that's very sensitive, they want to build an infrastructure that is very protected and allows only the right people to access that data. Mm-hmm. But an alternative approach is simply to take that HR data, mask it, hash out the employee ID fields and the names and the social security numbers, and then use existing tools, existing infrastructure, or even take it to the cloud. Use the cloud, do an analysis, only get charged for the minutes or hours that I'm using the cloud, and then bring it back, and then unmask the data and allow it to be evaluated. And so, if we start with the data and the questions that we need to ask, I think that really informs tool selection and infrastructure selection.
And sometimes it almost requires an outsider to say, well, what about this? Because you're absorbed in a problem. You're so deep. Like I've been in spreadsheets, and then the most obvious thing didn't till the next day. So what happens is maybe an outsider can tell you what the right question to ask is.
It could be because outsiders obviously have a different perspective, and they also can provide a new view on how to more efficiently analyze information. We kind of, when we own the data and the systems, we're bound by those system boundaries that we just feel are immovable because of the organizational inertia that we all experience. Outsiders who don't have that are free to think of new solutions. And so when we go into new customers, we bring our set of tools and perspective from the broader industry trends and what's worked across not just the federal government but commercial industry, which I think helps provide a better outcome as all organizations move toward this kind of a data analytics approach.
And one source of all this information that's flooding the people in the federal government is the Internet of Things. I mean, IoT. I saw an ad the other day where there's a UPS truck that pulled up and a drone got out of the truck and delivered the box and came down. Yeah. I said to myself, look at all that data that's being collected. Those drones are just absorbing information. There's satellites. There's all kinds of information there. So what about this fancy phrase, artificial intelligence? Can that help our people who are listening to this interview understand some of this data?
Certainly it can. There is no way that humans will be able to scale as the data scales. So our ability to evaluate all the data cannot scale with the amount of data that is being generated, useful data that's being generated. Artificial intelligence, which has been proven in multiple industries as being very effective, is like the first front of data analysis. Andrew Ng, who's a kind of a guru in artificial intelligence, has a great metric that I've adopted as we evaluate where to insert artificial intelligence in our customers' work flows. If any human task is something that a human can do within 1 second. And there's a lot of tasks that we all can do, like looking at an image and looking for things in an image, or quickly scanning an email. All those tasks that take less than or around 1 second for a human to do, an algorithm can probably do that as effectively. So if you look at things like Google Photos, I can now type into Google Photos just questions around, show me all my pictures where I went to Mount Hood 3 years ago, and it will find them without me labeling them or anything, because of the algorithms. Those are being now applied to lots of different data sets, and it is only a matter of years, maybe months sometimes, before these algorithms will be able to provide meaningful results to some of our customers.
So some of the mundane searching capabilities can be done with AI, but there still is a level of critical analysis that's needed.
It is an interplay between the human and the algorithms. Algorithms are not going to be able to develop insight. That's where humans really excel. And so as we go to work with customers, it's not how can I cut people. It's how can I take the people that you have in your workforce and elevate them and have them do more meaningful work.
That's a challenge. We're going to pause here for a short break. My guest today is Keith Johnson, Chief Technology Officer and Chief Engineer, Defense and Intelligence Group at Leidos. I'm your moderator, John Gilroy, on the discussion, Putting the Cloud to Work in Government, sponsored by Leidos on Federal News Radio 1500 AM and federalnewsradio.com.